The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek Episode 71.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the first season Discovery episode, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, which is itself an episode-length title.
Yeah.
Joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going?
Very well. Folks, if you are listening to this, someone shared the episode file with you, or you're listening on our website, be sure to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favorite podcast app. Or you can go to the SQPN YouTube channel, where you could subscribe there, and be sure to hit the bell to get notifications when a new episode goes up. So before we get into discussing today's episode, we had some news, which, as you're listening to this, is maybe a couple weeks old, but some news about Star Trek, the new Star Trek series, Star Trek Discovery Season 3, the short treks that they had promised us, a second season of short treks, and the new Star Trek series Picard. So let's take these in order.
They dropped a lot of information at New York Comic-Con. It was incredible.
Yes.
Just kind of all of a sudden, oh, okay.
Here's everything you've been waiting to hear about. So let's first talk about the Discovery Season 3 and its trailer. First up, the big news out of this is it picks up basically where we kind of thought it would, but it's still somewhat surprising, which is Discovery is now 950 years in the future.
Yep.
And it looks like the Federation no longer exists, and there's a guy who wants to rebuild it, and this is actually a series idea that was floated a long time ago, decades ago, but they're finally paying it off.
When they were looking at, after Enterprise ended, and a few years later, they were talking about bringing Star Trek back. This is back in the early teens of this time period, at least is when I most recently heard about it, there was this idea of a series that takes place decades later, maybe 100 years after the events of Star Trek Next Generation, where it would be this time of when the Federation in decline, and there was this. They would show this sort of degraded time period, whereas this goes much further, and this is about the time of the short trek Calypso, is it not?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that might explain why Calypso is aboard Discovery, and that Discovery hasn't actually been sitting around for 1,000 years, maybe, or has it?
And they've been very coy, because I think I remember reading where someone asked if Calypso was going to play in, and Kurtzman was just kind of, I don't know, we'll see. He's playing kind of coy to say whether or not it actually is going to tie into the next season.
Okay.
They had a scene in the trailer where someone from the future is walking across a very interesting looking green bumpy landscape with Michael Burnham, and I thought that guy was from the same civilization as Kraft from Calypso.
Yep. Okay.
Also, we got to see future Trills and future Andorians.
Yep.
Oh, right. That's right. And we also, the other thing we know is that a year takes place or passes from when they get there to when really the action really picks up. Like at some point we span a year, and Burnham is separate from the rest of the crew, as you recall. So she's trying to get back to Discovery. Also, Giorgio, the Mirror Universe Giorgio, who's now with Section 13, is with them in the future. And given that they're developing a series based on Giorgio and Section 13, I think that...
31.
31. Sorry, 31, not 30. Yes, Section 31. we probably have an idea of how this is all. At least somebody's getting back to the 24th century, I think.
Yeah,
That's my
they've indicated the Section 31 series, which will feature Giorgio, will be filmed after Discovery season 3. So either everybody gets back, or at least Giorgio gets back.
Right. So, the trailer looked interesting. Obviously, there's not a lot there to base anything off of. They don't tell us very much in these trailers, but we get an idea of who's there and what's going on. We see a lot of the characters from Discovery in civilian clothes at some point, one point or another.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting.
That never happened on Voyager.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing people could compare it to is oh, yep, here's another ship, Starfleet ship, cast off far away from home, where they have to make their way home from a very far distance, in this case across time rather than space. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. So any other thoughts about the trailer or the news about Discovery's third season?
Not so much.
We don't really we don't know when it will air. It will undoubtedly be, the first episode will be after the entirety of the Picard first season, which we'll talk about in a minute. So don't expect that till.
They have said that eventually they want to have it where on CBS All Access there are Star Trek episodes all year.
Right.
That
as one ends,
now
the next
it'll be
one starts.
one season. Yeah, one season leads into the next episode, or next season leads into the next season, and it's just a continuous cycle of series going on, which is kind of interesting, an idea actually.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, and that way you don't have to try to watch all be overloaded with Star Trek. It'll cause interesting issues for us as we try to do what we do on Secrets of Star Trek. We'll have to make some decisions about how to handle that, but maybe there's some series like the animated ones we won't cover episode by episode or something like that. But frankly, it's a nice problem to have. So given that time frame, my guess is we're not going to see anything from Discovery at the earliest until June. That's my guess. I don't know.
I think it's reasonable guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is possible we won't see anything until next fall, frankly. But
I mean, I would say earliest would be mid-April would be the absolute earliest, but only because of the next item of news that we're gonna talk about with Picard,
which is the Picard. We have a premiere date for Picard. Yay! It will drop on CBS All Access and Netflix for those of you who are not in the U.S. On January 23rd, which is a Thursday. And we got a new trailer for that season as well, which gives us a little bit more information about the series. Not a lot. It's a lot of what we've already seen in the previous trailer. We definitely have Borg. We have some interesting people who might be Borg without the things on them, or they might be the mechanical devices, or they might be androids. It was hard to kind of say. There might be something a little cross between them. So what'd you think of the news that's coming and the trailer, the second trailer?
I was kind of surprised by the date because that happens to be my dad's birthday, so that'll be an easy one for me to remember when Picard will start.
Yes.
One thing we did see is we got to see Deanna Troi and Will Riker.
Oh, right.
Married with a kid. This has been rumored for a while that they're going to be in it and that they're going to be, still married and have a child who was named for Troy's sister who was killed.
That's
and
right.
Those were all confirmed as part of the trailer.
Yep. And that was really awesome to see. I really liked that moment between Riker and Picard, and Picard saying to Riker, "You going to stop me from doing whatever he's about to do?" And Picard says, Riker says, "I've learned my lesson a long time ago," which goes back to that first episode where Riker tells him that Starfleet protocol is captains don't go on away missions.
Some fans I've seen are kind of disappointed that we're not going to see the Titan, which was the ship that Riker and Troi were assigned to, that Riker took over as captain. We're not going to see it because they're out in a cabin out back in Alaska.
20 years later, they're going to be on that same ship? That is not how military careers work.
Why not? Yeah. How long was Kirk on the Enterprise? Oh, I mean, got it back multiple times.
2 5-year missions, yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, so we get to see that they settled back in Alaska where Riker is originally from. At least I'm assuming it's Alaska because it's obviously, beautiful trees, and it's probably actually Vancouver, British Columbia, but
I thought it was Kirk's cabin from Generations.
Yeah.
Yes, that was kind of cool. Jimmy, what did you think of the trailer?
I thought it was interesting. It didn't reveal a huge amount that we didn't already know. We did get to see more of 7 of 9.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that she's serving as some kind of like sort of mercenary or something where she helps people by using guns in both hands at the same time and shooting at things. So maybe some kind of vigilante role for her or something.
Having to do with the Borg who are in this prison camp, maybe?
Maybe. We also got to see more of Data, except it was in a dream. So we know that Picard's dreaming about Data.
Yep.
And we got to see him call his dog number 1.
Yep. Well, that reminds me of the dream. They're in the TNG era uniforms, and you see like a hollow depiction of the Enterprise D, which of course some fans immediately geeked out about as well. So
right. And Data's painting something, and it's a whole dream sequence.
I find it interesting the makeup they're using for Data. It's not quite the same as the makeup from the show, and I wonder if that's a deliberate design change or what. I mean, some of the differences in appearances are just because the actors are older. Patrick Stewart looks a little more skeletal. Jonathan Frakes looks way less skeletal.
Yeah.
We know where Stewart's weight went.
Yeah. And Brent Spiner's facial proportions have changed a bit.
Well, the makeup might be due to the fact that they're now filming in HD. You know, the quality of the recordings are better. So maybe the makeup that they had for back in the 80s and even when they're doing the movies doesn't look good on the new equipment. That's my guess.
Maybe. It also may be just the constant producer's desire to change things just for the sake of changing them.
Yes, that is
but
true.
like you look at his eyes and his contact lenses are way bigger now.
Yes.
And his face just seems differently proportioned. Part of me wondered are they digitally compensating and not quite getting it right for weight that Brent Spiner may have gained in the intervening years?
Yep.
Yeah, because Riker could get heavier, but an android doesn't. Android has to look the same. So they're probably trying to de-age Brent Spiner for the role.
Exactly.
That's true. All right. So, and then the third piece of news was Short Treks. We've been waiting for the second season of Short Treks to drop, and in fact, we have a Short Trek available now. Another one later this week as we're recording, and then coming out about once a month until into January. And just to let you know, we will be discussing the Short Treks as they come out in detail. But for patrons, we'll be recording those and putting them on Patreon, and you'll be able to listen to those there. And especially if you have there's a special feed just for patrons, and you can check that out on Patreon. In fact, if you go there to patreon.com/StarQuest, you'll be able to. I'll put some explanation there for how to subscribe to your special patron feed. But those who aren't patrons yet, don't despair. We will bundle all these discussions together and release them in January, just before Picard drops. So we'll have all of the discussions available then. But if you become a patron, that's a special benefit we want to make to those who help make this show possible.
I think that was the biggest surprise of that panel was they basically said, "Oh, and by the way, the first Short Treks is available now."
Right.
And they timed it on CBS.
Did they show it at the Comic-Con? Do you know?
I don't think they did. They did. I think what they did, though, is they timed it so that it released on CBS All Access as the panel ended.
Oh,
and I think it sounded like there was a little bit of technical difficulties, but it was within a few minutes of the panel ending that you could go on and then watch it.
And this first Short Trek is the one that focuses on Spock and number 1.
Yes, stuck in the elevator, which is a classic
trope.
Written by Michael Chabon. I forget how you pronounce it. Chabon, I think. The author, who is also executive producer and showrunner on Picard. So very interesting there. So
I just have one question for you, Dom.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like eggplant?
Undoubtedly.
That's a spoiler for the. Spoiler for the patron-only episode, which we'll be recording right after this. So
right. If you listen to Raising the Bets of episode 19, you'll hear how much I like eggplant. So Very good. So that's the news. So very interesting. And so let's get into talking about today's main topic, which is The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry Discovery Season 1, which is the
fourth.
Now I don't remember, fourth episode of the season. Yes.
So let's start by talking about the title and how ridiculous it is. It's really kind of pretentious, over the top, and hard to figure out. I think the first time I watched this, back when we originally looked at Discovery Season 1, I don't recall having an interpretation of the title. Obviously, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry sounds dramatic and sinister. It also raises questions in my mind about, wait, shouldn't the lamb already be dead before a butcher starts to, use his knife on the lamb?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not in the old days.
Maybe not, but I know like today they will stun cattle before killing them, and then they kill them before they cut them up. So it raised questions in my mind about, is this even accurate? I don't know if it's a quote from somewhere. Maybe it is. But I think this time around, I kind of got an interpretation of what it may mean, even though it's a little hard to relate to the episode. I think the butcher's knife is symbolically represented in this episode by Tori from Battlestar Galactica, Rekha Sharma, who plays
Landry,
the security officer. She is the butcher's knife. She doesn't care at all about the tardigrade and the tardigrade's motives and sufferings and things like that. She just wants to make it into a weapon of war. And I think the tardigrade is the lamb, because it's perceived as being this sinister thing that they can use as a weapon of war, but really it's harmless. If you don't attack it, it won't attack you. It's really a gentle thing. And so I think the tardigrade is the lamb and Landry is the butcher's knife. Maybe.
Perhaps also it has multiple connections in this episode, because it could be that Vok is also the lamb, and Tukuvma's vision is the butcher's knife. It's essentially the idea of the sacrifice of the weak for the greater good.
Right.
And there's a Christian allegory in that sense, where Christ is the lamb who sacrificed for our sake, who sacrificed on the cross. So there's this idea of the butcher's bill. It's the butcher's bill must be paid if you want to kind of extend the metaphor a little bit, where whatever the cost, the some are sacrificed.
Yeah.
I guess.
So if that's the incomprehensible title, we can then move on to the incomprehensible opening sequence.
It's one thing I am glad about is, and maybe that was a change with getting rid of Brian Fuller and moving to Alex Kurtzman, is they also got rid of these really strange titles that the first season had, especially, just looking through the list of titles, especially in the first chapter, the first half of the first season. Those went away, and I think that was probably one of the changes that Kurtzman made.
Right.
Thankfully.
Right.
So we have this weird opening sequence where there's this kind of metallic crystal lightning landscape that is rapidly changing in front of us, and we have no reference point for what this is until they back up the camera and we realize we've been watching the interior of a replicator fabricating a uniform. And so Michael has now got her official uniform with no rank, but she's no longer going to be wearing her prison garb on the ship.
Right.
And I thought to myself, this is a great idea, showing us the interior replication process and having it look that weird and strange. And I thought, they have so much money that they can just blow on a sequence like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's cool. I mean, I thought it was kind of a cool sequence though, but it's just, okay, that must be nice.
it didn't have any real connection to anything else in the episode, I don't think. It's just they did it because it was cool,
Well, and there was the idea of putting on the uniform again,
Well, putting the uniform on, certainly, yeah.
But I mean, it kind of was building up to that. I think is showing that this kind of this powerful moment for Burnham of getting to put the uniform on again.
rebuilding the uniform in the Replicator is sort of like rebuilding her connection to Starfleet and rebuilding her life. I mean, there's a bit of a.
I mean,
metaphor
again,
there.
there's you can allegorize it as like that, but I mean, it's still a cool scene.
Yeah.
So then Tilly comes in with a package for Burnham. It's some sort of lock container that has a specific lock that only one person can open. It's the last will and testament of Philippa Georgiou. And
as soon as Michael learns that, she yanks her hand off and doesn't want to proceed any further with it.
Right. It's whatever Georgiou left for her in her will.
Yeah, although they could have been a little clearer about that, because it says, Michael Burnham, do you accept the last will and testament of Philippa Georgiou? And it's like, is this part of a legal process? Are you going to read the entire will here?
Right.
Yeah.
But apparently it's just the part that's relevant to Michael.
Right.
And
it's beeping until she opens it.
I know, which is so ridiculous. Tilly tells us it won't stop beeping until you open it. And hours later, at the end of the episode, it's still under her bed beeping. And that's like really rude to Tilly. And it's also really implausible. You should be able to say, Alexa, shut up, and have it stop.
Yes.
21st century technology responds to Alexa, shut up right now.
Yes.
I don't know how many of us have had that smoke detector that you can't find because you got 3 of them and you can't figure out which one is it.
Which one is beeping?
I solved that by taking the batteries out.
Yes.
Yeah.
I live dangerously. So it turns out that Saru, the first officer, wasn't informed by Lorca about Burnham staying on the ship. And he finds out when Burnham walks under the turbo lift with him wearing a uniform, which is very, very disturbing that Lorca would neglect to tell his first officer this information.
Yep.
But Saru manages to tell Burnham the duty roster lacks an opening for mutineer, which was a good line.
Ooh, what a burn.
That was quite a burn. A Burnham. They arrive at the bridge where there's a battle simulation going on that is not going well. And Lorca is both aggressive and even angry while not doing anything to help. He's just blurting out, well, what are you doing? Do that. He's not giving specific orders. He's sort of just letting the crew flail at this battle simulation.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder why it doesn't go well. They have no leadership in the center seat. So,
well, I kind of took it as he's trying to get them to be able to handle this kind of situation if he's not around. Right. Because if you're a captain, the ship may enter battle at any moment in a war. If you're not on the bridge, they need to be able to handle things without you.
But somebody is in charge. Like there's a con officer or a duty officer or officer of the deck,
right,
that would be in charge. So I mean, I see what you're saying. I still think it's a bit. I think what it's supposed to do is to tell us a little more at Lorca, his true nature. As you look at this in retrospect, after you watch the first season, you say, "Oh, yeah," there are clues scattered throughout,
like the fact he didn't tell Saru about Burnham.
Exactly.
Yeah. I like, though, the fact that they're using the view screen to run this battle simulation, and they don't tell the audience initially this is just a simulation. So for all the audience knows on a first-time watch, this is a real battle they're in all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's very striking because they're on Saru and Burnham were on the turbolift. There's nothing going on. There's no alarms. And when the door opens, there are alarms. Now, if there was a real battle, of course, the alarms would be going on throughout the ship. So, it does strike us as strange at first. We're told that the drive is called a displacement-activated spore hub drive. I think that might be the first time they've actually come right out and say it. And Lorca takes Burnham to what's obviously an uninhabited deck. There's just because as they're walking through the corridor, the lights are coming on. So there's no one else on this deck. And there's a lab there, with the lab we saw at the end of last season, where they're keeping the spore tardigrade. And the lab has some of the deadliest weapons in the known galaxy. And
including what look like piles of alien meat on trays. And I'm going, how is that a deadly weapon?
Maybe they're like the Absorbaloff or something. He points out that Burnham is a xenoanthropologist. That's her specialty. And he wants her to do weapons research on the tardigrade, figure out what its claws and hide are made of. That's
because it resists phaser fire and can slice through hulls.
Yes. And having that sort of ability would seem to be useful in a war.
So his claws must be adamantium? Oh, wait, that's Wolverine. Never mind.
That's right. So we then switch perspective to the binary stars, where we had the battle at the binary stars, because there's only one set of binary stars in the galaxy. And Valk is aboard T'Kuvma's ship with L'Rell, and it's 6 months later, and it's still disabled from the battle. Their engines don't work. They're running out of food, and the other Klingons haven't rescued them because it's not the Klingon way, maybe?
They haven't brought them spare parts. They haven't brought them food to this point. Apparently, this is some kind of religious thing. It's like this ship is a religious artifact, and we've got to fix it in this religious way. We can't have any other explanation for why we're being so ridiculous about this. So it's religion.
Well, and part of the ridiculousness is that the part they need is sitting right there on the wreckage of the Shenzhou, which is still there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
they need to get the dilithium thing off the Shenzhou.
Right. L'Rell convinces Valk, set aside your purity and use the Shenzhou's wreckage to fix this ship. And she talks about bridging the two houses of her parents. One parent is from a warrior caste. The other is from some kind of spy caste.
Mm-hmm.
They work in underhanded ways, hint, hint. And then says Valk can bridge T'Kuvma's vision with the needs of the present. So it's sort of a religious debate that we're getting here.
She also talks to Valk about how he wasn't nearly as concerned about purity when they ate Captain Giorgio and he picked the flesh off of her skull.
Yeah.
That
Ouch.
was very
Yikes.
Yeah.
Very explicit imagery there. That was wow. Yeah. I feel like the Klingons in this Discovery series might also not have too many qualms about cannibalism of their own, perhaps. It just kind of strikes me as the Klingons of this vision. So we leave T'Kuvma. I mean, we leave Valk and L'Rell here and go back to Burnham and Landry working together to study the tardigrade. And Burnham says to Landry, you judge the creature by its appearance and by a single incident from its past. And as I was thinking about that, I'm like, is that foreshadowing of Valk/Tyler coming there?
It's also kind of foreshadowing of Burnham herself.
Well, yeah. I think it was clearly Burnham talking about herself as much as she was talking about the tardigrade.
That's true. Yeah, I can't believe I missed that. But yeah, that's a good point. That she's trying to, she's hoping to redeem herself. Landry's having none of it. She clearly dislikes Burnham, doesn't trust her.
I like at one point Burnham says this creature can only be what it is, not what you want it to be, and right. Tori gets to say, it reminds me how much I hate Vulcan proverbs.
She also says Lorca isn't interested in what you are, but what you can do for him in his war effort. So there's she kind of points out that Lorca, is utilitarian when it comes to the people.
Very single-minded about the war effort,
right? Or something. Anyway, his real mission. We shift to Lorca eating lunch or dinner in his office. Some sort of octopus thing, and he has a pet Tribble on his desk.
Yep,
and a bowl and fortune cookies, and then Admiral Cornwell calls him up on the vid phone.
Right, there's a Klingon attack on the dilithium mining planet Korvan, which alone generates 40% of the Federation's dilithium. One planet.
Yikes!
Wow.
That is like really an unsafe strategic situation.
Yeah, it's a good thing they have maybe 2 fleets to defend it. Oh no, They have a small task force that's been overwhelmed by the Klingons, by 3 birds of prey.
Yeah, you would think that they would put more assets around their major defense industries.
Right. Yeah.
Also, they make it sound like if we lose Korvan 2, which will happen in a matter of hours, and we know that.
Ticking clock.
Exact down to the exact second of how long.
Right.
Yeah. They that it's like every ship in the fleet is going to run out of dilithium like by tomorrow or something. I mean, how often do the ships need new crystals?
Right. Well, and then we know from the original series, there's at least a dilithium mining operation, automated somewhere out by the edge of the galaxy. where they went and where no man has gone before. And then there's some dilithium miners that we see with Mudd's women. So there's at least a few other mines out there. Why? It's just that making the stakes way too big. Just make it. There are a bunch of people about to die we have to save. How about that?
Which is what they end up doing. They play the recording of the miners talking about how dire their situation is, and we hear little children screaming and stuff. That's what the real stakes are. That 40% of the dilithium supply is going to be gone tomorrow is unnecessary.
Right. I mean, even if it was say 5% of the dilithium supply, that's still a big enough deal for them to go and save it. I mean, it's an important strategic resource. Plus the people, let's save it. Boom. It's just it's the typical writer's trap of making the stakes too high. So they have to get there, yesterday. And Lorca, when Admiral Cornwell says, "Can you get there?" and he's like, "Oh, totally," and then Stamets is like, "Totally not." Yes, he says that navigation by the spore drive at this point is probabilistic. The longer the jump, the more the possible outcomes of where they're going to end up, and they're not sure why the Glenn was able to do what it did, though they salvaged some of the equipment from the Glenn. And that's what this episode's going to tell us about.
And they don't know how it works because apparently there's nothing in the hard drives in this equipment to tell you how it works.
Conveniently, all the recent logs were scrambled.
Right, conveniently. But we know that this goes there and that goes there. And there was there wasn't an extra supercomputer laying about. That they need a supercomputer to do the navigational computations. And Lorca wasn't there one there? And it's like, in running through the ship, I kind of missed that supercomputer that was just sitting around.
I actually like the way you put that. Is even as we're running through the ship, for our lives, I really would not miss something like a supercomputer just sitting there.
Yeah. Maybe they shouldn't have blasted the Glenn into bits at the afterward. Maybe they could have towed it away or something, just in case you needed something that was still on it. So. Not forward thinking. Back to the binary stars. The Klingon Cole, who we'll see a few more times in this season, shows up and meets with T'Kuvma and L'Rell, and he's acting all obeisant. He's kneeling before them because he wants the cloaking device that the T'Kuvma ship has, and they refuse to give it to him. And there's a whole discussion here. A lot of the talking in Klingon about T'Kuvma's rightful heir and stuff like that. Not. I didn't find it all that compelling and didn't really advance the story.
I don't find all the Klingon talking through that hideously thick plastic foam, whatever it is, makeup helpful.
Yes, yeah,
it sounds very muddied. I really wish, it's just not well done.
I really wish they had gone with the sci-fi trope of, let's just pretend they're talking another language, but they're really have the actors speak in English and just be done with it. Like this Klingon language that they're using is just too cumbersome.
Yeah, and that's not even a sci-fi trope. I mean, it is a sci-fi trope, but it's predates that because it's used in all kinds of stuff. I mean, I know in World War II era films, you see Germans talking with British accents, they're talking in German.
Yeah,
exactly. Which is kind of goes into Star Wars, where the Imperials all speak in British accents.
Yeah.
So Discovery's first jump that it tries with the new equipment doesn't go as planned. But Burnham notices that the tardigrade reacted when the drive came online.
Yeah.
Starts getting an idea.
Did like the visuals in this sequence. They jump pretty deep into the gravity well of a star and then have to pull out.
Yes, that was pretty cool. Stamets gets his nose broken pretty graphically. And Lorca confronts Stamets about his ego and his inability to fix the drive. Stamets says, "Well, let me off and I'm taking my drive with me." And Lorca's like, "Yeah, my ship, time of war. You're not going anywhere."
Yeah. Or more accurately, you can go where you want. You just ain't taking nothing with you.
Right.
They also get another message from Corvin 2, and this is an audio message. And at one point, the actor reading the audio message says, "Zaphod is dead." Oh. And I'm going, Zaphod Beeblebrox, the president of the galaxy, is dead?
That has to be someone throwing that in.
Yeah.
Landry, meanwhile, proves that she's an idiot and decides to she's going to cut the claws off of that tardigrade and do it herself because Burnham is being so wimpy about it. So
and she flushes Callie out the Viper tube, and it's just one mistake after another.
She releases the tardigrade in the lab, and in an stupid and ill-considered attempt to quickly jumpstart their weapons research. That's my note. And she gets clawed to death, and thus opening up a spot on the roster
for a mutineer,
for a new security chief coming up next week. On the wrecked Shenzhou, Voq and L'Rell, they get that dilithium processor while getting ready to start dating, I guess, or something. I mean, there's a lot of flirting going on there over that dilithium processor.
By the way, I liked how the ruined Shenzhou looks, because it's been 6 months. There's no initially. It's open to vacuum. There are ice crystals all over everything, and it just looks nice. Nice set dressing and nice ruined ship.
Yep.
I did notice a few times that Voq is looking at the crew manifest, and specifically Burnham's record. Yep. So that's a little bit of foreshadowing there. L'Rell tells Voq she doesn't want to lead, but that's interesting. She doesn't want to be in charge of this whole vision, Takuma's vision. She ends up as chancellor. So that's how that ends up. But she
Wanda
says
Malari said very similar things.
Exactly.
Yes. She does tell him that she wants to stand behind Voq and be his enforcer and defender. Back on Discovery, Burnham uses Saru's lack of a threat response, his ganglia, to the tardigrade as proof that it's not a predator. I'm not sure how that's proof. It just shows that his threat ganglia don't react. Doesn't prove.
Yeah, it's on the other side of the force field.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can tell from its anatomy, I mean, even though it's got big mole-like claws, it's got a teeny little snout that's clearly not meant for ripping into flesh.
Yes, right. Saru reacts to her using him in this way by saying, "You'll fit in perfectly with Lorca because she uses people too." Which is
snap!
Yeah,
another nice
one from Saru.
Burnham finds that the tardigrade's favorite food is spores, and the theory is that it was on the Glen hunting for food because it had spores, and that it can travel the mycelial network, and it has a symbiosis with the spores, and they communicate, and wavy handies, and this is the solution to all of our problems somehow.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of food, Call brings food to the Klingon sarcophagus ship because Voq stupidly let him know that they were running short on it, so now he's bribed everybody to coming over to his side.
Yeah,
those Klingons were pretty easy to convince to switch.
Yeah, and even L'Rell feigns that she's joining in with him.
Yes, but she saves his life because at this point Cole wants to toss him on an airlock. But she saves Voq's life by proposing a more fitting fate of being left to die on the Shenzhou, which is exactly what she plans to, part of her plan. So, meanwhile, the tardigrade is beamed into the spore drive chamber and connected to this system that stabs it in the gut. I guess the drive runs off of a tardigrade fat-sucking operation or something. But I forget what they call that. But
And then, now that the tardigrade is hooked up, the Galactica is able to do an atmospheric jump to New Caprica and rescue all the people below.
Wow, there's something very familiar about all this.
A lot of connections there. Yeah, gee, I wonder.
Yeah. So the Discovery defeats the Klingons just in time. Yeah, and it's like, no, don't defend ourselves just yet. Let them come closer. Let them come closer. Just shoot them. They're not going to stop coming if you're shooting at them. Shoot them. And then people run out of the Corvan tunnels as debris is raining down around them from these Klingon ships that have been destroyed. Hope nobody got hurt. And
in the wake of that, the crew of the Discovery touches each other a lot in celebration, but they're not really hugs.
There's like the pat on the back type,
Yeah.
Yes, it's very reserved. The interesting thing when the tardigrade is beamed into that chamber and connected, Burnham notices how much it's in distress by all of this. It's very stressed out, very upset by what's going on, which might be why it got loose the first time on the Glen and killed everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So then we find Voq left to die on the Shenzhou, but then L'Rell beams in and Voq says, "Oh, you've given me my opportunity to kill you." No, dummy, I'm here to rescue you. This is part of the plan. This is where she gives him the plan where we know he's going to be turned into a sleeper agent in order to infiltrate Starfleet and
Yeah.
win the war somehow.
Yeah, so she tells him he's going to go to the matriarchs. He's going to have to sacrifice everything, but somehow to prove he's the one true torchbearer, he's going to win the war, and that'll let him keep the houses unified. And it's like, how is this supposed to work? He's going to be a security officer on a ship. How is he going to win the war and
With no
and-
memory of who he really is, too.
Mhm.
Yeah, how is this supposed to work? This is not a well thought out plan.
Right. It is not. And it seems very un-Klingon, doesn't it? The sleeper agent. I mean,
Well, she
we've
is
seen
from
that.
the House of Thieves or whatever.
and I guess in the Trouble with Tribbles, we also have a Klingon undercover
Yeah.
agent. So,
Arn Darvin.
yeah. So I guess so. Just different houses, different ways. We're at the end of the episode, and Tilly tells Burnham that she should open up Georgiou's package because she's not afraid of anything, and so it won't beep all night, keep them awake, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Tilly's real reason. And Georgiou says in the recorded message that the best way to know yourself is to know others, I guess. And she also says she's as proud of Michael as if she were her own daughter. Foreshadowing!
Yes. Also, it's effective with an A and an E because she's having to watch this will or fragment of a will that was recorded before she betrayed Georgiou.
Yeah.
Right.
And when Georgiou is just so proud of her and so pleased with her, she's including her in her will and giving her something her family has had for hundreds of years, she says,
Yeah.
which turns out to be a handheld telescope or
Right.
something. Not the cool Navy sailing collapsible type, but a bulky 20th century looking one.
It's something you get from Amazon.
Yeah. But apparently they've saved this Amazon telescope for hundreds of years in her family. And she's given it to Burnham because she doesn't have a real daughter, and that just goes to show the sterility of 24th century Federation lack of pro-life, pro-family ethics.
Right. None of these
her-
captains have families except for one. He had
Yeah.
one son. Actually, he had
and
two
that
children.
was illegitimate.
I was thinking of Cisco, but they had two children because Cassidy was
okay.
pregnant.
Yeah,
yes,
I was
more
thinking
children.
about Kirk.
Oh yes. Oh, there's another one. There you go.
Yeah.
Who died?
But in any event, so it is kind of, you do get this internal wince on Burnham's behalf as she's watching Georgiou being so proud of her, knowing that
Yeah.
she's responsible for Georgiou's death.
You undoubtedly are commander of your own starship by now.
Yeah.
Ouch! Turn that knife a little more. Yeah. So yeah, and that's where we end it. The plot, the season long plot advances a little bit here. We get a little more information. We find out what the tardigrade's for. We're starting to get control of the spore drive. That will be important for reasons for the rest of the season. We get a little bit of that. We see our last Valk. This is the last we'll see of Valk now, and
Fortunately.
unfortunately.
Mhm.
But in general, I mean, not the strongest episode of the first season, in
But
my
not-
opinion.
Wasn't the worst either.
No.
There's far worse.
Was
No.
not the worst. I think the worst one is coming up. Actually, might be the next one. The one where where Saru goes all hippy dippy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that might have been the worst than the worst episode. But so that's where we are. Any last thoughts about this one, Father Corey?
Just kind of one thing. Lorca gives a speech about all these famous inventors and includes Elon Musk. Well, apparently he added Elon Musk because he was trying to get Tesla to give him a free car.
Oh, was it the actor was doing that?
The actor did that.
Jason
Jason
Isaac?
Isaacs did that because he wanted a free car. He wanted a free Tesla.
Hmm.
Well, the question then is, did he get a free Tesla?
I don't know. I never did hear. But
That's awesome. Jimmy?
Nope, nothing else.
All right. So before we wrap things up, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including this time Sean N., Greg O., Jordana A., Jason E., and Ricky T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give, and if you do, you'll get access to the special Short Treks episodes that we're recording for them. So that's it from us. What did you think of The Butcher's Knife, etc., etc.? this long title Discovery episode. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to trek@sqpn.com. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing The Naked Time from the original series, Sulu with an F-A. Until then, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Well, thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well.
My pleasure, and live long and prosper.
Once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, less extraneous words, Tilly.